I'm going to talk through a range of options that are currently available for engaging in the Royal Commission. And again, it's a lot easier with the new website, so it's quite good timing that we're holding this workshop this week. So the options include making an individual submission, and there are various ways that you can do that, and we'll go through that. And that's what the second half of this morning will really be working through as well. And there'll be time to think about how best you would like to engage if you'd like to do so, and we can talk about some of the pros and the cons and the risks of different methods of engaging. Just recently, just with the launch of the new website, the Royal Commission is now inviting applications to speak at private sessions. So this was an approach that was taken in the previous Royal Commission into institutional responses to child sexual abuse as well. And lots of people expressed very strongly to the Disability Royal Commission the importance of private sessions for confidentiality, for people feeling comfortable, for people being able to share their own stories. So that's now available as well. And we can talk through sort of how you might apply for that. There are community forums that the Commission is running in various locations, often regional locations, and they've run a few in Queensland already. I know there has been one in Logan and in other places as well. That's another opportunity to engage, and we can talk through some of the aspects of that. And then there are the specific issues papers that the Commission is releasing, such as the Education and Learnings one, which contains specific questions and things that you're welcome to address, and respond to specifically. The other option is speaking at a public hearing. That's by invitation only. So often in response to a submission or some other form of engagement, the Royal Commission will invite particular people, including academics, including people who work in the space. I know at the current hearings in Sydney, the NDIS Quality and Safeguards Commissioner Graham Head will be appearing. So there's often a range of government people, academics, advocates, and people with disability and their families who are invited to speak at hearings. Lisa? So just talking briefly about individual submissions and the options for those. The new Royal Commission website has a new submission form, so you can do it online if you'd like. All submissions can be made anonymously. There's no need to put your name or any identifying details in there if you don't wish to. You can make as many submissions as you'd like, so you don't need to feel like one has to have everything in it. The more the better. You can put in a submission about a particular experience if you'd like. You can put in a submission responding to this issues paper, and then if you think of things later, you can add those in other submissions. You can put submissions in written format using the online form, in an email or by post. You can call the Commission and speak to somebody at the time, or you can do a voice recording and send that in to them by email. You can also do a video recording, which is what Lisa and Hugh mentioned earlier. There's the option to record something today if you wish, and then you have the opportunity to send that in. Individual submissions can be made in other languages, in your first language, as well as Auslan. And the Commission will then be responsible for the interpretation and the translation at their end. There's more information on the Commission's website. The new website has quite a good, straightforward section about the options for submissions, all the numbers you need to call, the email address. And we've also developed a workbook which uses the Commission's information that we'll be going through later today as well. Yeah, I think that's a really good question. At the moment, the resources that are available are mainly aimed at parents and people over 18. I think there's definitely scope for thinking about, how children might like to engage and share their stories. There is, and I can talk more about it later, but there is a legal service that provides free legal advice around engaging with the Royal Commission. So that could also be something to chat with them about around protections for people who are under 18 and who are still in the school system. So the next method of engaging, or the next option that you can think about, is speaking at a private session. So anybody can apply to speak at a private session. That's with a commissioner. That can be done face-to-face, and the commission will cover reasonable travel and accommodation costs to get there. It can also be done on the phone or by video conferencing. They're expecting a lot of people will apply for private sessions, so they have indicated that priority will go to people who aren't able or aren't comfortable to share information in other ways. But anybody who has a story they would like to share is very welcome to apply. The sessions would go for around 2 hours in length, so you'd be speaking directly with one of the 7 commissioners and telling your story. And that's an approach that was used extensively in the previous Royal Commission around child sexual abuse as well. The information provided at a private session is confidential and will be protected. The only exception the Commission has said is in very limited circumstances. For example, if a criminal charge would need to be progressed, then that information would be shared. That's another option as well. So to apply for a private session, you can do that online through the website, by phone, by email, all the usual. So that's a really good question. So that would be seeking legal advice from the free legal advisory services that are provided. They are independent. The legal advice is independent of the Royal Commission. It's called the Disability Royal Commission Legal Service. I have the phone number later in the slide, but it's also available online. So the next, or another option for engaging in the Commission, is through the community forums. Last year they were called community forums. This year they seem to be called community engagement activities. So we'll see where that ends up. But the Commission is holding these activities in various locations. Again, their forward schedule until the end of June is up online. So they'll be doing a little bit, for example, in Tasmania in March, and moving around various areas. Anyone can apply to speak at a community forum. It's important to note, though, that it is a public forum, so there is no guarantee or really any assurance of confidentiality. Anybody may be in the room and may be hearing what you're saying. And our advice would be to speak to the legal advice team beforehand, so you can talk through your options around confidentiality. So that's advised before you think about speaking at a forum, because no information guaranteed to be protected in any way, but it is a way to tell your story. That's right. Yeah, the Royal Commission has said that they're interested in all forms of education. Yeah. The final option that we were talking about today around engaging in the Royal Commission is responding directly to issues papers. So similar to providing another form of submission, there's a range of issues papers online. So far they've been releasing them in line with the public hearings. So to do with those topics, they contain various questions and information that they'd be keen to learn more about. So they invite you to respond directly to those questions. Obviously, it's your choice if you wish to, or if you wish to choose to respond to some or not all. But that's another option as well. And responding to those then is similar through online, email, phone, all of the methods that you can provide an individual submission. And I think an important thing to note around the issues paper is that they have given due dates, but they're not compulsory. So please don't feel like you missed the date so you can't put in a submission. They have said they will accept submissions later. So you're still very welcome to do that as well. We have touched on this already a little bit, but privacy and confidentiality is obviously critical to consider when you're thinking about how you would like to engage with the Royal Commission. So currently the advice from the Royal Commission, and again with the new website, there's a booklet that's gone up online called Sharing Your Experience with the Disability Royal Commission. So that's where a lot of the information, or that's where the information that I've been talking about and is in our workbooks comes from. So this is the latest information directly from the Commission. And the advice in their booklet is that submissions are protected until the Commission ends in April 2022. And free legal advice is available to discuss any confidentiality concerns you might have around that or about what happens afterwards. The information from private hearings, they have said, remains confidential after the Commission ends, except in limited circumstances, for example, criminal charges. So the legal advice service is a really important one to think about. And then, as Catherine noted before, it's absolutely free to access. It's available telephone, email, and other things. And so would really recommend people seeking that if they have any questions or would like to talk about confidentiality and other things around that.